How will we pay for Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure plan? Michael Bloomquist is legislative and governmental affairs partner with Venable LLP. Hello, Michael.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with me. So here we are again with another bold infrastructure proposal, maybe the boldest in recent memory. And yet the issue always comes up with funding. Where are we now, do you think, with regard to the level of spending contemplated by the Biden plan, just for starters?
So right now, Congress is going on two tracks. One is an approximately $1 trillion hard infrastructure bill, and that would be bridges, roads, airports, railroads, what we traditionally think of as surface transportation, or that is a bipartisan group of senators have reached agreement on the general issue areas, broadband deployment, stuff like that. And the thorny issue is how to pay for it. And as you said, so they thought they had cobbled together, at least subject to CBO's approval, a list of pay-fors, but one of those pay-fors was the increased enforcement at the IRS over the next 10 years. And that was that offset was estimated to be about $100 billion. That got too much pushback from the Republican side. They pulled it out, and they're still trying to figure out how to fill that hole. Mm-hmm. The other bill is a partisan 3.5, it's kind of nicknamed soft infrastructure. And that would be things that are certainly very important, but the parties couldn't resolve whether they were whether they belonged in an infrastructure bill. So that would be things like paid family leave, an extension of the childhood tax credit. Senator Sanders would even like to have Medicare covered vision and dental. Mm-hmm. They're going to pay for that with repeal, in part with repeal of the Trump corporate tax breaks. They're talking about changes to the estate tax, as well as changes to personal income tax rates for those making over $400,000. They have some other things like drug pay-fors and some other stuff there, but that would proceed under a budget process with only Democratic votes, and it's not certain that they can get all the Democrats on board.
Yeah, in the past, I don't believe that the term infrastructure has been so widely defined as to include so-called human infrastructure as you're describing today. I'm just wondering, to what degree does that kind of muddy the waters and make it more difficult to get any kind of infrastructure proposal passed at all?
I think it certainly does, but we're seeing the reality of a Democratic Party, which has more progressive elected members than they had in the past. The central leadership position of Senator Sanders being front and foremost, but with a 50-50 Senate and only a 4-vote majority in the House, the progressives were not going to take anything less than over $3 trillion in human infrastructure. Mm-hmm. If they went along with what Nancy Pelosi is calling, a 50-year-old view of infrastructure.
Right. Are we pretty much just giving up on the notion of continuing to fund infrastructure through the Highway Trust Fund and through a federal gas tax, which, as you know, has not been raised for many, many years? Is it just conceded that that's not going to fly?
Yeah, I mean, the gas tax is still being collected, but because of inflation, and like you said, it has not been raised in so many years, it produces less and less of a percentage to cover what we need to do on infrastructure. So they then make up the shortfall by just using funds from general revenue. And that's what's happened the last couple mm-hmm. of surface transportation bills. Interestingly, there was a move afoot to look at vehicle miles traveled as a way to kind of bring users of the road through electric cars or hybrids to paying into that process, and that got a lot of pushback from
Oregon tried it, right? State of Oregon.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense because it's those folks, if it's a user fee, those folks are using the road.
Yeah,
there are a lot of people view any increase in the gas tax to be very regressive. Republicans don't like it because you're raising taxes. Democrats don't like it because they feel like it sucks it to the poor when. And so, I kind of feel like if if we're all using the same road, everybody should pay, but that's, I don't have the voting card. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea of a fuel tax, of course, becomes less and less saleable as we go more and more, as you point out, toward electric cars. And so just automatically, if we meet our bold projections for going all electric by 2030 or 2050 or whenever, that fuel tax wouldn't be of much value, would it?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of so where are we then? I mean, this just sounds like there's a lot of creative accounting attempts here, a lot of things in this basket. I am just wondering, what are the prospects for progress this time? Because again, in the past, infrastructure proposals have always crashed and burned on the issue of funding, and here we are again on the issue of funding. Do you have any optimism that somehow we're going to get through this time and make real progress on infrastructure construction, maintenance, and the like?
I mean, I guess I feel like that bipartisan bill could get passed if that is something they could really get to 60 votes on, overcome the filibuster, and then being able to move it. I think they would use, as you said, creative accounting to balance the books on that, and that's happened in the past too, where folks are kind of agreeing that we're going to look the other way on this pay for. It might not be quite as juicy as it looks on paper, but we think this is really important. They can always decide to not pay for some of it. That's been the past how tax cuts have been seen as an investment in terms of tax cuts. So we shouldn't have to pay for them. I think the big rub is going to be when you get back to the House of Representatives, and can or will Speaker Pelosi say, look, we tried to do the human infrastructure. They couldn't get it through the Senate. What do you want me to do? This hard infrastructure package is important. We need it. It'll benefit everybody's district. Let's go ahead.
Well, sure. I mean, not only the need because our infrastructure is literally crumbling, but the job implications of it would be tremendous, would they not? So I would think that would be something that everybody could get on board with, assuming there's anything today that everybody can get on board with.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's the hard thing. And there were some, everybody's got their pay fors that they think are reasonable and common sense, and that's somebody else's sacred cow. Yeah. And so
it has been proposed by proponents of or opponents to a larger government role in this, that the private sector be brought in the form of, in some cases, public-private partnerships, in some cases, private investment entirely for certain types of projects. Is that a go? Are we going to be looking at that in the future, of the private sector to participate more in infrastructure?
I think PPP is something that folks are always interested in and looking at. I don't think a type of infrastructure bank or a green bank is in the bipartisan infrastructure package, but it would be in the reconciliation package. Another area is every year at the end of the year, there are tax extenders, things that need to be extended, and it becomes almost an annual process. There's going to be an end of the year tax bill, and there is some thought that some of these ideas, say one of the supply chain issues that was of great interest to my members when I was on the Hill were vaccines and the raw materials that go into prescription medicines and vaccines. PPE, masks, and nitrile gloves is another huge issue that came out during COVID, that we just don't have the right supply chain in the United States. And so I know the Ways and Means Committee has been looking at targeted tax incentive bills to try to encourage companies to onshore their facilities to the United States and give them quite lucrative tax credits if they do that. So that'd be one area where you're having the private sector put skin in the game, but you're also giving them some government support. So different type of people.
What about also asking the private sector to pay for projects and then recover their investment in the form of tolls and the like, and user fees on privately developed roads? Is that a palatable concept?
I think it is. I think so much of that stuff gets the federal government sends a slug of money to the local state or the state departments of transportation. So in the Washington, D.C. area, the council of governments here has authorized the hot lanes around the city where people have varying rates of, or the toll rate varies based on how heavy congestion is. And that seems to be pretty popular here. Now, I know there are definitely members on the Hill that do not like that use, do not like federal funds being used for that type of project, or to back end pay for that type of project, because taxpayer dollars, we should all be able to use the roads. So
I'm not hearing optimism from you, Michael, but I'm not hearing absolute pessimism either. Are we just what's our takeaway here? Mixed message, wait and see. Is there going to be an infrastructure bill in the sense that we all used to define infrastructure? What's your take at this point?
my prediction, which I will leave to you and your audience, is it's baby steps this summer. We get to the fall, the Highway Trust Fund expires September 30th. Congress decides we need a couple more months on this, and then at the and government spending and everything else to work its way out. And it's that week before Christmas when a deal comes together and you get a more traditional form of infrastructure passing.
Michael Bloomquist of Venable LLP, thanks for sharing your insights with us today on this everlasting subject of infrastructure. Thank you for being with me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.